Welcome to the latest Motley Fool Scoreboard. I'm on in Chocolate. We've got longtime fools Dan Caplinger and Toby Bordelon giving a 1 to 10 rating to a fascinating company these days. It's Intel, ticker symbol INTC. Rate the strength of Intel's business first, including its industry and its competition, which is fierce. A 10 is invincible. A 1 is hopeless. Dan's at just a 3. Toby, you're at a 5, which is still pretty middling or low.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's fascinating on in the way most people understand that word, but I did go 5 here, and maybe it should be lower than that, but I'm leaning higher on the theory that once great companies do have the capacity to be great again. Intel's a name people of a certain age know very well. It was once the gold standard for CPUs, but competition in the space is now quite intense, and Intel has fallen behind rivals like Nvidia and even AMD in the semiconductor industry, especially with the rising importance of mobile devices and GPUs. The company still has a dominant market share in the x86 segment, though, and it's possible they can be relevant again.
Yep, I agreed with Toby that maybe it should be lower than that, given it the 3. Frankly, I'm shocked. I just don't understand how Intel goofed this up. They had such a strong leadership position in the 80s, in the 90s. They've just had way too many chances to try to get themselves moving in the right direction, to try to be that once great company that has become great again. And I just feel like now they're kind of going through this spiral where they're losing the confidence of the people who could potentially lead them forward. They've lost the momentum in high growth areas like artificial intelligence. Company's leadership has been lacking. There's just so many holes in the company right now. I'm not sure that I see a good pathway to getting the company moving in the right direction again.
Yeah, I use the word fascinating because of potential tailwinds like onshoring, AI, and everyone likes a turnaround story. So I was curious if you all would rate it high. I mean, I kind of see where this is going already. So probably not getting that big. We love the turnaround. Let's go on to management and see if you like the captains of the ship. 10 is Warren Buffett. A 1 is Homer Simpson. Looks like you don't. Dan, you're still at a 3. Toby's up or down to a 4.
Yeah, look, I got to say up top here, it's hard to give a score to management right now because, former CEO Pat Gelsinger stepped down just in December, and I went with 4, and I'm going to say that's an interim score to go with our interim co-CEOs. How do you not even commit to one interim CEO? But in any case, it's also a reflection of a board that I don't necessarily think is up to guiding this business right now. The interim CEOs are both financial, marketing, and operational people. I don't think that's what Intel needs at the moment. And in other management news, the head of their AI and data center business just announced he was leaving to take the CEO job at Nokia. So that's not the best news for a struggling turnaround story in the age of AI. Just not a lot to love here.
Yeah, my score of 3 based largely on past management, as well as the lack of planning by the board of directors, as Toby said. How does this company not have a succession plan in place? How is it that Gelsinger's resignation is sudden? I mean, the company has been doing not too great for quite a while, and so I think very foreseeable that you would see a top management leader give up and decide to do some other things. Even the external prospects that some analysts have mentioned as possible candidates to take over the CEO spot, nobody's exactly lining up or seems to be campaigning for the job. I just think it's really going to be hard for Intel to find the leadership that they need to mount a credible turnaround going forward.
Now, co-interim CEOs might not be great for a company, but I think the NFL should do this anytime there's an interim head coach position. I'd love to see a 2-headed head coach and see how that goes.
Yeah, just have somebody call, have them both call plays and just let the quarterback pick whichever one the quarterback likes better. Yeah, sure. That's going to work great.
Exactly. But good TV. Financials, a 10 is a fortress, a 1 is yikes. Toby's up to a 6. Dan, you're still down there at a 4.
Yeah, I just don't have that optimism that Toby has. I see plunging revenue. I see operating expenses that aren't scaling down with falling sales. I see negative operating income. That's just not the look that I want to see for a company that dominated its industry 30, 40 years ago. Not the kind of foundation that I want to see in the financials for a turnaround.
Yeah, I went 6 here. It is not great, but it could be worse. I feel like a 46 billion here, the debt is really high relative to the 22 billion in cash and short-term investments they've got. So that's not great, but it's manageable. Inventory levels look stable for now. Revenue is falling, and as Dan noted, they did show up a bit of a net loss for the past year versus the profit the year before that. But that was largely due to one-time restructuring charges, right? One time. So hopefully the worst is behind them, and the company can get back to profitability. They're still cash flow positive, so that's good. But there is clearly some work that needs to be done here in terms of returning to growth and profitability.
Dan, let's move on to valuation. How well will Intel stock do over the next 5 years, and how safe is it? 10's a sure thing, 1's a lottery ticket.
Gave him 5 to 10% returns with a safety score of 4. That's actually not too bad for me. 5 to 10%, kind of my default for where I see the market generally going in the next 5 years. I think that there is a good chance Intel's valuation has come down enough that some larger tech company is going to see enough potential value in their intellectual property and in their other assets that they're going to come in, make a bid. Maybe it's a lowball bid around $30 a share. The stock trading in the low 20s as we're speaking. And so that would get you 5 to 10% over a 5-year period. Maybe it comes a lot sooner than that. The problem I have, and the reason I give it such a small safety score, is I have no assurance that the next management team is not going to come in here and instead of just looking for ways to perpetuate the current business, swing for the fences in a way that just catastrophically fails. And that's kind of where I think Toby and I disagree on the safety score. That, yeah, it's fallen so far. You'd think it wouldn't have anywhere further to fall. And yet I think that future management, depending on who it is, might be prone to make that kind of mistake.
Yes, same for me on the return, 5 to 10%. I think the expectations are so low that it won't take much to get a bit of a boost from the stock here, whether that's from a buyout, whether it's just from, hey, we're a little bit more profitable, right? But I'm not sure it's going to be that much more than a market matcher long term. I think a turnaround is possible. The odds of that are low, right? But on safety, I went 7. Yeah, they are struggling. But there's a solid business here, I think, even if it's going to be a lower margin one. I think the downside is probably limited. We'll see.
Let's move on to everyone's favorite topic. Dan, I'm sure there's a company in Intel space that you like better.
Geez, it's almost take your pick in the semiconductor space. I went up the supply chain to ASML Holding, which is ticker ASML. They make the equipment that helps people make semiconductors. But you can even sell me on Nvidia before Intel. And that's something I tend to think Nvidia overhyped, overpriced, overvalued, but still a lot more going for it than Intel at current right now.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start here. Like Dan, as concerned as I am on the valuation of Nvidia, I'd probably pick them over Intel. But AMD for sure, ARM maybe, Taiwan Semiconductor. Look, the point is, if you're looking for a more compelling investment opportunity than Intel, you don't have to look that far.
Thank you to Toby and to Dan. They've given Intel a low overall score of 4.6 out of 10. And they seem to prefer pretty much all the other big chip players over it. So good to know. Look out for a new scoreboard every market day at 7 p.m. Eastern. Next up is Align Technology. Till then, full on.
Yeah, I'd respect his opinion. I'd especially respect his opinion if it was the opposite of mine.